And gratitude's exactly what I want to talk to you about in today's episode because it has got a massive, massive impact on your ability to create. Because it has a massive, massive impact on the way you feel about what you have created. So let me roll into the story. Last week, we did Fran at the gym. Fran is a CrossFit workout. That's one of these benchmark workouts. In high school, people would ask me, how much do you bench? And as I've gotten older and I started doing CrossFit, people ask me, what is your Fran time? That's the way you kind of judge yourself against other CrossFitters as like a baseline standard of what you're good at and where you are at a fitness level compared to everybody else. And if you don't know what Fran is, I'll explain it to you because it's really, really simple. But as you find out in CrossFit, the simplest workouts are actually the ones that hurt you the most. These are like the hardest workouts. Whenever it seems really simple, you find yourself like dying at the gym. I remember that when I first started doing it, I'd look at a workout the night before because they send out an email saying what the workout's going to be. And I'd tell my wife, oh, it looks simple. Oh, that's going to be easy. And I'd get there and come back from it and I'm like, oh my God, I'm dying. So Fran looks simple, but is really, really hard. It's 21 squat thrusters. Look that up if you're not sure what that looks like, with 95 pounds, followed by 21 pull-ups, then 15 squat thrusters, then 15 pull-ups, then 9 squat thrusters, and 9 pull-ups. Again, this might sound simple, but I promise you, if you've never done it before, it is really, really taxing. Your heart feels like it's going to explode out of your chest as you're doing it. And so I wasn't really sure how I was going to do when we did this benchmark test last week at the gym because I haven't been training as much or as hard. I've still been going to the gym. It just hasn't been pushing. I haven't found that extra gear that I normally find over the past couple of months. And so I wasn't really sure how this thing was going to go down. But sure enough, when I get up and I do all this work, I look at the clock as soon as I jump off the pull-up bar in my last round and I see 3 minutes and 18 seconds. Which is a really fast Fran time. Like I'm super happy with it, especially being 43 years old. It feels like I'm at a time in my life where I should be getting slower and weaker, but I'm getting faster and I'm getting stronger because 18 months ago, I recorded a time that was 11 seconds slower, which was my previous PR of 3 minutes and 29 seconds. So this was really good. I'm super happy with it. But my buddy did it at the same time I did it. Actually, wait, he did it an hour before. And we were trading texts later in the day and I told him what I got and he was like, dude, that's amazing, like great job. He ended up getting 3:09, faster than me. And what he ended up doing was he was making all sorts of excuses about 3:09, which to me, I'm going like, what are you making an excuse about? That's an amazing time. It's like, well, I shit the bed in the rounds of 15. I would have been 20 seconds slower if the coach wasn't yelling at me. So what he exhibited inside of that is something that I bet you do, because I know I've done it before, where you downplay your accomplishments. There's no gratitude for what you've done. Instead, you're not happy with yourself for what you've done, and you always see the gap instead of the accomplishment. The gap being what actually happened versus what you wanted to have happen or what you feel like your potential should have been inside of whatever action you were taking. Which leads us to our principle of the day, which is super fitting given that I'm recording this again on the week of Thanksgiving here in 2021. But it's remember when you wanted what you have right now. Like think about that. All the things that you have in your life, from the body you've got right now, assuming that you've got a body that you like, right? Or is better than it was 6 months ago, 12 months ago, 18 months ago. You got relationships that are on point. You've got a business that is working at some level. Remember when you wanted what you have now. And it's a really hard thing to do because you, like everybody else, like me and all the other people that you come into contact with on a daily basis, they're all on the way to becoming. And I'll use the air quotes on becoming. They're all on the way to becoming. And what that means is that you're really focused on a target. You're focused on something that you want to do at some point out in the future. Some of you have got targets that you want to hit in the next 6 months. Some of you have got targets you want to hit in the next 6 years or 16 years. But it's all on this way to becoming, right? And we all tell ourselves that I will allow myself to be happy when I get this, or I'll just be able to relax a little bit when I get this. We're all on the way to becoming. And we get so focused on that target that all we can think about, and it's an obsessive thought for most of us, me included, is that you're not there yet. You're not there yet. And so you get fixated on the target, and all you can see is the gap between where you are today and ultimately where the target is way out there someplace in the future that you're looking for, and it winds up just frustrating you to pieces. And in that sense, you don't acknowledge how far you've actually come. It's a big problem because it affects the way you mentally feel about what you've done, or rather emotionally feel about what you've done up to that point. It never feels good enough, always feels like it could have been better. There's always some form of lack that it would have been just great if you could have just fill in whatever blank you want. The best example that I can share with you about this, and really what we're talking about here, guys, is gratitude. Gratitude for yourself and all the work that you put in to get whatever it is that is the result you want right now. And I'm presuming that you're not at the absolute bottom of the barrel and the worst you've ever been in body, or the worst you've ever been in your relationships, or the worst you've ever been in business. I'm presuming that you've made some progress at some point. And my bet is that if you feel like you haven't made progress, you've still made progress, because you just don't look at it that way. You see all the things that you haven't done and worry about those instead of the things that you actually have done. So we are talking about gratitude here. And the best little parable that I can share with you about gratitude was shared to me by one of my mentors, Garrett J. White. Great guy. Absolutely love this guy. And he had this great parable about gratitude. He lives down on the beach in Southern California. And I remember sitting there talking to him, and he said, hey, if we're sitting on this beach right now and you and I decided that we wanted to go to the horizon, and we got out a GPS device and we say, this is where the horizon is. We punch in the latitude, the longitude, we've got it all dialed in, and we get on a pair of stand-up paddle boards because he likes surfing and stuff like that. So anyway, we get on a set of paddle boards and we're gonna paddle out to the horizon, right where the GPS said the horizon is. And he says, would we be at the horizon? And of course, my answer after thinking about it for a second is like, well, no, we wouldn't be. We wouldn't be. You wouldn't be at the horizon. And he said, that's right. Where would the horizon be? I said, out there. It's constantly out there. It's not a spot you ever arrive at. It's constantly out there. And he says, well, you got two choices when we get to the spot on our GPS. One, you can be pissed off and worried about all the stuff that you don't have, about never getting to the horizon, looking at the horizon that's way out there and thinking, why don't I have that right now? Or you could be grateful for the vast amount of work that you and I would have had to done to make it out to the horizon that we can see right now that we plugged into our GPS coordinates on paddleboards. And it makes sense because we're always looking for something that's on the horizon, which is great. It's awesome to have goals, but it's terrible to feel like you're not making any progress towards those goals, which I promise you, you will not feel like you are unless you've got gratitude for how far you've come. Remember when you wanted what you have right now. Remember that. Very, very simple thing to do, but it doesn't mean it's easy, because for me, it's a fight. I think about this lesson in how I apply it in my own life, and it is a fight nearly every single day to recognize the progress, because there are days where my business simply, it just feels like a grind. Like this is the primary fight in my life right now, is business and getting where I believe is there, and it feels like a grind. But what I've got to remember is that I've been in this for almost 2 decades, and I've got to be grateful for the fact that I still have a business, because 98% of them fail within the first 2 years. And here I am 2 decades later, still operating and still getting things done. But I don't always see that because I don't always think about that. Instead, I think about what I don't have. I'm thinking about the next horizon versus the horizon I'm at right now. So in your life, think about this. Think about when you wanted what you have right now. And I don't care what that is, the body you have, the car you have, the house you have, the spouse you have, the mental clarity you have, whatever it is that you have. I want you to think about what you have now and think about when you wanted it. And just take a minute and be grateful for everything that you've done. And I promise you, that very thing alone is going to help you do the next thing that needs to be done to get to where you want to go.